talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs, lots of things have been happening, lots of moves. They obviously have had the biggest fishes so far. I mean, when you combine Bobrovsky and Radish together. So, what are your thoughts? We'll start with Bobrovsky first. He's obviously a huge piece and I think a very controversial move. I'm personally not a huge fan of it, as you know, but I was curious what you think.
Yeah. Um, it's definitely like a mixed bag with this one for sure. Um, there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things to like about this move, and there are a lot of things to dislike. Obviously, we know who Bobrovsky is. We know what he's done and what he's accomplished in this league. He's been one of the best goalies in the league over the last decade, but he's coming off of a not so great year after going to three Stanley Cup Finals in a row, which can take its toll on a goalie, right? So there's certainly that. However, if a guy like him does bounce back, it is a huge addition to your team. So it's a really big swing. He's going to be 38 years old, going starting the season this year, and he's getting paid 7 mil for the next 3 years. So it's definitely a bit risky because if he doesn't perform this year, you're stuck with him for 2 more years at a relatively that's a pretty high AAV for a goalie, especially one that's going to be 38, 39, and 40.
Yeah, I'm just not a huge fan of the deal because of that. I mean, could he bounce back and be great? Yes. Um, do I think he will? I have no idea. I was always the one telling you I think he's probably due for a regression and he's going to fall off. And I think Florida thinks the same thing. That's why they didn't want to go out and pay him that money, right? Now, maybe Toronto's right. Maybe he does bounce back and maybe he's great for us. And if that happens, like it raises the ceiling of this team for sure, right? I mean, having him at his best form or close to that at least makes this team much better. But I was a huge fan of Hildeby. I believe in the kid. I think he's going to be a really good goalie in this league, and I think that obviously we'll talk about that trade with Tampa, but losing him sucks, and you're relying now on an injury-prone Stolarz, a goalie who's looked like he's maybe starting to get washed, and then a rookie who's never played in the league. That's kind of the bad outlook on it, if you want to take the negative stance, right? So when it happened, like the first thing I said is please don't trade Hildeby, and of course, a few hours later they do. So I'm not a huge fan of the move. That being said, I understand the move and it could work out and be really good. So we'll have to wait and see, I guess. Moving on, I think to the Nick Paul trade. I think that's probably the next biggest thing to talk about. That trade I actually am a big fan of, at least for. I'm not a big fan of moving off of Hildeby, but I am a big fan of getting him. I think the Leafs needed to get back some depth on this team, and he definitely adds that, right? Playing the third center role, he can play up and down your lineup. He can play wing. He can take center draws, right? He can play center. He's physical. He's got some more speed, right? So overall, like I like the trade. I like the move. I think it makes the team better. And I think like we're talking about with Borowski, like when you have both those guys, if they both bounce back and have good years, like this team's ceiling is raised for sure, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Nick Paul he's such a great player, and he's a huge part of those Tampa Bay runs. Um, he's a guy who can put up 15 to 20 goals while killing penalties, being good defensively, and just being like a pest, right? I mean, he's a big boy, 6'4", 230, and he's got wheels too. So he's a handful
Yeah.
to deal with for sure. He really bolsters that third line. To me, I know some people have him at wing. To me, this screams third line center. I think he's playing third line center for the Leafs.
No,
I'd
definitely.
bet on
100% he's
that for
playing third line
sure.
center. Yeah.
It does hurt to lose Hildeby. I'm in agreement with that. Like I was sad about Joseph Woll leaving, but I was high on Hildeby, so I was like, okay, I'm excited to see what the kid can
Yeah.
do, especially considering that last year, among goalies who had played at least 20 games, he was third in save percentage.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, that's slightly nitpicked, but the point is 20 games is a decent NHL sample size, and he performed extremely well. So it's a little tough to swallow that because I think that he's capable of being a really good goalie in this league. But I do understand that making a move like this and getting Nick Paul definitely makes your team better.
Well, and you have assets, right? So between between him and Artie, right, in the AHL, like those are two. good young goalies, and so you move off of one and they get better somewhere else. I understand the thought process, but now you lose one of those chances, right? And so, and as Leafs fans, like we've had these kind of trades before with Tuukka Rask, for example. It's definitely a scary trade, but I understand it. I think it makes the team better now for sure. Moving on to some of the other signings, right? So Sissons was a pretty big one. That's a bit of an overpay, but I understand why they went out and did that. I think a huge part of what the Leafs were doing is trying to add depth, but trying to add depth that can play defensively, right? And so that way they can relieve Matthews and let him actually play the role that they
Yes.
want him to play, get back to being that goal scorer. Because I do think if this team is going to get back to being a playoff contender and maybe even a cup contender, they need to have Matthews firing on all cylinders. He can't be a 35, 40 goal scorer. It's just not going to be good enough. They need him to be a 50 goal scorer plus. And I understand he's good defensively and you want him for those matchups, and that's great. And he can do that in the playoffs, by all means. But during the playoffs, he needs to fucking score goals. Period. Like he needs to
It's
get
about
back to being
balance.
that guy. Yeah, it's about balance for sure.
It's
So
about balance. He can't
and
be starting the amount of draws that he was in the defensive zone again.
no,
Like it's just too
no,
much.
it's too
Like
many. Yeah,
Matthews needs he's a guy who you can deploy defensively, but ideally, that is going to majority of that's going to be happening when you're up in games and you're closing up big games and you're like, hey, we have a lead. There's 5 minutes left. We're going to put Austin Matthews on the ice, right? Um, so yeah, it just can't be happening like at the rate it was because it's just too much of a defensive burden. Clearly, we've seen that with 2 years in a row with Chief. So yeah, that needs to change. And getting a guy like Colton Sissons definitely helps you relieve a lot of that defensive burden for Matthews.
yeah. And then they go out and they add Roslovic too, who I like that move because I think you think about it in the sense that they had Michelli. He's basically a Michelli replacement, but he's a better player. He's going to score more goals, and he's played with Matthews. He can play up and down your lineup a little bit more. He can even play center too, right? So I think they've done a lot of good things as far as getting guys like even Bluger who can play center and wing. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and especially if you have injuries, you can kind of change your lineup. Or even if they're not injuries, you just want to kind of see how different things look. It gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of movement in your lineup, right? So I like what they did there with that signing. What do you think about the Jack Roslovic signing?
I'm a big fan of that. I mean, we needed right hand shots in the
And that's
lineup,
yeah, that's true.
so
Right?
that's
You definitely need right-handed shots. I mean, the only guy we have right now is Willie, so that was a
yeah.
must
And now
sign, right?
we have him plus I believe Colton Sissons is also right handed. So that you need that in your lineup. You can't just have all lefties.
Yeah,
And he brings speed, which is one thing that the team lacked last year. Is like, hey, it was too much like big, shut down hard hockey, right? And obviously that's a good thing. We need that, but we need more balance. Like we mentioned with
yeah.
like
The
Nick
Leafs are
Paul's a
always
big
like
guy, but he's fast.
they want to be on the extremes. They don't want to like have let's figure out where the middle is, okay? Instead of
Yeah,
having a super slow
exactly.
old team and a super young skilled team. I mean, somewhere in the middle of that is where they want to be. So
Yeah, exactly. And Roslovic has scored 20 goals 3 times. He's done it 2 years in a row on two different teams. Um, and at a relatively low AAV at 4 million, I like it a lot. I think it's a great contract. 2 years, not very risky at all. So I think he adds for sure some goal scoring some depth goal scoring the Leafs are missing.
yeah, so I think I want to talk to you about, though, reflecting on everything that's happened so far, because the Leafs have had a lot of change over the past year from where they were at this point last year, right? And I was thinking about it like people are really excited right now because they feel like things are happening and they're making moves and they're adding to the team, which I understand that's a good thing. And but there has to be like some realism in the sense that like look at the team they have now versus last year. How much better is this team than it was last year? What do you think?
You know what? I maybe you'll disagree with you. I think it's already quite a bit better than it was last year. Just based on the fact, um, I mean, we're not talking about Radish right now because we're talking about what happened during
No,
free
I'm talking
agency,
about everything. Everything.
but that's a huge. I know that's what I'm saying. A huge move, right? Having him like, when's the last time we've had a guy who's capable? If he does what he did last year on Tampa, or even close to it, we have not had a number one defenseman like that, and I can't even remember and then you add a guy Roslovic, you add some of these guys, and then we're getting McKenna, right? So I do think that this team looks a lot different in a lot of good ways. And also we didn't mention Brandon Duhaime, another good physical, fast winger who
Good
he plays
defensively.
hard, good defensively,
Yeah.
right? He fits that
Fourth
he
line
fits
role.
that mold so much better than some of the other guys we've had who are just slow and big, right? He's a guy who's like he's just not fun to play against, which is what you want your fourth line to do. Again, not only is it about making this team better than last year, but it also, like we said, freeing up Matthews, right? That was a big thing. If Matthews is better last year, we may not miss the playoffs last year. Maybe we're not the same team we were
Well,
the year
yeah, it's part of
before.
it is to injuries as well, of course. Like I
Yeah,
think you can look at the Leafs team last year and 100% say with objectivity that they were a better team than what the result was, right? If they're healthy and everyone's playing better, like, and everything doesn't go to shit, basically, they're not the fifth worst team in the NHL. But
yeah,
I think, like, I don't know, I just look back on, like, last year and, like, looking at the depth of the team, you thought it looked pretty good, right? Like, for example, you had Nicholas Waugh and Scotty Lawton as your 3 and 4C, right? I would argue
yeah.
it's
But
better
Nicholas
than.
Waugh was deployed horribly by Berube. I think he
I
did
understand
an
that,
awful
but
job with him.
yeah, I understand that. So if you're saying that the coaching is going to be the difference, that's something, but, like,
Well, I think it's an accumulation of a lot of things, right? I don't think it's just one thing that made the Leafs season go wrong. That's more so what I'm saying,
I know, but
right?
I'm just talking about comparing the teams on paper from what they were last year to now, right? Like, I don't think that we have better
Right.
center depth than we did last year.
Well, no, no, that's fair enough. But also too, again, right, getting guys back from injury too. Like people want to talk about the Leafs decor, right? Um, and they're forgetting the fact that we didn't have Tanev last year. So if it's expected that Chris Tanev is going to play for us this season, that changes your decor also like a ton, right? So you add him and Darren Radish as your top two right shot defensemen, and that's a big difference, right? And I think the Emil Andre addition is a really sneaky one that I think is getting overlooked a lot. Great defensive metrics, and he moves the puck. That's a big thing. The Leafs,
Yeah.
we couldn't break out of our own
No, yeah,
zone, right?
the
Like,
decor last year was too old and slow. I think the decor is definitely better this year for sure. Especially if you're, like you said, if Tanev gets back to being healthy and like they get that McCabe Tanev line back and running. I mean, that's a huge part of what made the team the year before that so effective, right? They're able to put those guys against really good first lines, second lines, and shut them down. So getting that back, getting Radish, getting actually, I think too for the power play, getting him on the point is going to allow the power play to be more dynamic because they never really had that threat from the point ever really like in the entire Matthews era. So
yeah.
it'll take some of the extra bodies away from Matthews' side, right, and bring him maybe a little more to Radish's side. And if they don't, then Radish will score goals, right?
Yeah,
So
and another thing I want to add as well is Easton Cowan, who
yeah,
I
player
know there's some
development.
rumors, right? Player development, right? Easton Cowan takes a step,
Matthew
and
Nyes too
this
can
year,
take
which
another step.
Matthew Knight, right? Like how much of a difference does it make having a guy like Easton Cowan on the team who is all of a sudden putting up maybe 50 points this year?
And yeah, I also think too, like people really want to undersell McKenna. People are always like, well, he's a rookie, like don't have too much expectation for him, right? He's just don't act like he's gonna save this team. And it's like, hey, well, there's two different sides of this, right? It's not like he's gonna be out there being a plug. I mean, he's a very, very dynamic, skilled player. He went first overall for a fucking reason, right? So you plug this guy into your top six or into your third line or wherever he ends up playing most of the year, he's gonna be effective. He's gonna add to this lineup 100%, right?
Yeah, I hate that argument so much. I think it's so stupid because obviously in their first season, first round picks aren't going to be at their peak. Like
Yeah,
no
is that going
shit,
to be scoring
right?
120 points next year? Obviously. But
No. But like look at like other first round picks. Look at Matthews. Matthews had 69 points and 40 tucks. Are you telling me that the Leafs add a 70-point, 40-goal guy to their roster? I'm not saying that's what McKenna's going to be. That doesn't help them right away. I'm sorry,
100% it does.
that's insane, right? So like I think it's completely reasonable, especially too considering that McKenna is going to be playing with likely Nylander or Matthews, who are top of the line offensive players. Why is it crazy to think that he can't put up 60 points, which I don't think is that high of a ceiling for
I think it's a realistic expectation. If he doesn't hit at least 50, I think that's a bad year,
yeah,
especially
especially
with the
considering
players
if
he's
he's
playing with.
what he's playing with. Yeah, no, you would expect that from like a first round pick just in general, normally 50, 60 points. I think what I'm expecting from McKenna is more in the 60 to 70 because of the fact that I think he's going to be playing with Matthews. And
Yeah,
adding a player like that to your roster at league minimum is a huge boost. And anybody who says it isn't is just fucking coping with the fact that the Leafs got the first overall pick because they don't like the Leafs.
it's
I'm
true.
sorry. Like, that's my stance on it, at least.
Yeah, so I guess overall we can say the team is definitely, I think, better than it was last
Yeah,
year.
and they're probably not done yet, too.
They're probably not done. I don't know how much there is left to do, but this team is definitely, I think, more complete than it was last year, and they've filled some holes they needed to fill. Are they a perfect team? No. Are they a clear Stanley Cup contender? No. But could they get back there? I think they definitely have given themselves that chance. Not saying it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I think, like we were saying before, like the Bobrovsky thing needs to work out. If it doesn't, that's going to change things. Like it's a very big risk in the net, right? So, but if
Yeah.
everything goes right for this team, I know you can say that about a lot of teams, but everything goes right for this team, they could have a very, very good season. A very, very good season.